to, Reese, good time. You can get settled while I read the mumbo jumbo. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting of February 5th, 2025. This meeting will be conducted live and by remote participation pursuant to the executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law signed by Governor Baker, taken effect March 12th, 2020, subsequently extended through March 31st, 2025, under Governor Haley. We have a big agenda tonight, 18 items, but we have a full quorum here. We do have to vote, roll call votes for everything, so I will entertain the motion to open the meeting.
Okay.
Seconded? Start in the room. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Maurice?
Yes.
Dwight? Hold up your hand, or it looked like he said yes.
I'm sorry, I have you muted.
Yeah, Don?
Yes.
Yes, and the chair votes yes. First up on our agenda, on project updates, we have, I guess, 8 of them coming. Hopefully they're all. First one is the Stoughton Motel conversion. I see John and Emily. So actually, Barry, if you want to open it up to them, and I'll let you run through the updates with everybody, if that's all right.
I'll open up the project update.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, do you want to start or do you want me to?
Go for it, Emily.
Okay.
Give me
All right.
half a second to put your project update.
Half
up
a
on the
second,
screen.
Oh, sure.
Barry's gonna put it up on the screen or share the update.
All right. I'm not sure. There's actually some things that have need to be updated since our update of just a few days ago or last week, but I don't know,
I
if
think
you just want a brief overview or if, how much detail you want beyond.
How much, I think just take whatever time you need.
Whatever you, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, actually, I'll commend you. You guys did a great job filling in. You really made me feel like this form is truly helpful to us because
Okay.
you filled it out very well. So yeah, you can kind of go briefly through it and then add anything that's not there that you think is relevant, but I mean, I know it's a.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if I can just 5 minutes is enough to, I think,
Yeah.
bring you up to date and fill in a little bit more detail than what's in here. We were informed of our state funding commitments last April. We just received the commitment letters last week after this report was issued. So we do have those in hand now. And we got our construction documents together for bidding last summer. We bid with 3 contractors. The low bidder unfortunately had to withdraw their bid after we had informed them they were low bidder and we had done some additional value engineering with them. And we subsequently asked the 2 other bidders to give us bids. They weren't within budget, and we asked a 4th bidder to come in, and he was able to match the original low bid. So I'll want to follow up with you, Barry, maybe outside of this meeting on, I can provide a full summary of our bid process to see if that meets your procurement requirements. In which case we would use the Stoughton CPC money for construction costs. If our bid process doesn't meet your requirements, we'll look at other costs to fund with the funds.
What I would do is I would run it by our procurement officer. And she's very good at reviewing these, Fran Brunetti.
Okay, could you send me her information?
Absolutely.
And okay, great, thanks. So anyway, so we were pleased with that. I actually went back and looked at my records. Back when we applied to you guys, it was in what was it, August of 23. And that was an estimate based on incomplete plans at that time. Then when we went to the state, they told us they wouldn't entertain a request for as much funds as we originally thought we would need. We did a little more value engineering. So anyway, the bottom line is, while the construction is over budget from what we thought we were going to get down to when we applied to the state in December of 23, it's actually lower than what we told you when we originally applied. So, so from your perspective, we're actually a little under budget. But because the state told us I think they would only come in about $1 million less than what we originally said. Father Bills has had to double their plans for fundraising for the project. So they will fill the gap in the project. We're all set. We're good with our budget. So since then, since we selected the final contractor in December, he's already pulled his building permit. Prior to that, we have gotten our highway permit for, we're changing the street cut a little bit into the parking. So Mass Department of Highways has approved that, which is a cumbersome process. So that's great to have that in hand. We have a bank identified. They've done their appraisal. They're ready to close. Contractor is eager to start with demo. We may start a little sooner with the demo than our March 1st projection. I just have to check with our insurance company and make sure we're going to be all set there. But full construction will still likely start April 1st. They're with renovations. They really want to do that selective demo and see whether we have any surprises that are going to require additional work from the architects and engineers, so that that's all set and ready to go for their April 1st start. We're all concerned about potential tariffs and supply chain issues, and we're doing what we can to mitigate those circumstances that are unknown and changing daily. The big thing will be getting our lumber order in early, because most of the lumber in New England is coming from Canada. So we want to get those prices all set. I'm hearing on another project of mine that lumber companies do have a backlog. They've got plenty of stock right now, so it shouldn't have an immediate impact if those are even implemented. Right now, they're on hold. And other, we know typical items that are supply chain issues, and those are typically switchgear and generators. We still have to design our generator here, but it won't hold up occupancy anyway. It's just something we prefer to have. And the switchgear we certainly do need, and we're getting on top of that. And I don't remember whether we have our utility company easements in place here. I think we do. But I'm sorry, I've got a few projects going. If we don't, we're working on it. We're certainly aware that those need to be handled early on. So we have a fairly local contractor, not Stoughton, but Brockton, and the subs. I don't recall whether we have any Stoughton subs, but they're certainly all from the local area, and expect workers will be as well. What else can I tell you? Our big obstacle is we're dragging with the state on closing.
Right.
So we're not thrilled about that. We would have been ready to start this a while ago. Although with the change in the bidding that held us up anyway. But we're looking at ways to not have the state closing hold us up, and to have funds from other places to get us going. State is fully committed. There are no federal funds in this project other than some ARPA money that the state already has in hand. They used it to help us with the acquisition loan, and they're going to add another $1 million during construction, but those funds are in their accounts. So no other federal funds on the project that can be held up from any actions that may or may not be taking place.
That's good.
Yeah.
Obviously you've been very busy.
Yes, very busy. But we're excited about the project. And Yeah, we've got a great team in place, and we've been doing pre-development meetings for about the last month. We meet weekly and getting our planning going ahead of time and bring everyone up to speed.
Okay, great. John, anything you want to add, or, I mean, she covered a lot there.
Yeah, I think Emily covered all of it. Like she said, I think the construction company that we're working with, we're really excited about the work that they're going to be able to do for us here. They have been very eager to get this project started as we are. And so I think we're just, looking to get shovels in the ground and get going.
Okay, great. Any questions from the committee?
I just
No.
wanted to thank you both for keeping us in the loop and really involving us in the process. We really feel honored that you're doing that.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is a great example in my mind of not only the form that you filled out, but as Barry said, the communication and the moving fast. Great project. We all want to see it happen.
yeah, contractor thinks he may be actually ahead of schedule, but otherwise we're projecting 12 months. I think he'd love to get it done in 11.
Yeah, good. Dwight or Dawn, and I see John Linehan joined. Any questions from folks online?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Hearing none. Okay. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let us know anytime you want an additional update.
Absolutely.
We will. We will.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Next on the agenda, I see Jerry McDonald. I don't see Jerry. Is he online there, or I don't see
I
anybody?
don't think he's here.
Okay, he had two things, so we're moving quick. We have an update on the Marks Field renovation with Mike Tupin. Mike, if you could take a seat, introduce yourself, and
Let me get the project update out.
story of my life on these local projects is me and my dog out walking the neighborhood, and we go up to Marks Field. So I'm anxious to I read the update, but I get to keep an eye on what's going on. Good. Let's see it quick. I can't wait for the field. I mean, I talked to some of the people up there when I'm up there with the dog.
Yeah.
They're all, most of the neighbors are excited.
Yeah,
I know a couple of them I hear are not happy, but somewhat to be expected.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
Nope.
We got it up on the screen and we'll let you do your thing.
all right. My name's Mike Tupin. I'm project director for Stoughton Youth Lacrosse.
My name is Jay Santana, current president for Stoughton Youth Lacrosse.
We had a couple of meetings with Stoughton Youth Lacrosse and town members that we kicked off the project on October 2nd. Stolex then met with Activitas on November 11th to go over their results from their survey, which we presented to conservation on December 23rd. And then we had a field review on January 27th between Stoughton Youth Lacrosse and Activitas. We've completed the wetlands flagging and existing conditions survey. The design, permitting documents and development is in progress. And town department review meetings and pre-application meetings with the town conservation agents has been set. So conservation meeting will be on the 20th. That we will be presenting that to the members and the public. Then preparation and RDA filing with Conservation Commission, 100% construction documents development and bid documents to be available. We hope to have bid documents available mid to late March. And get that out. Our plan is with spring season's coming up, there's a lacrosse season, so we don't want to start until July. That's when our season's set end. So then we hope to get that in, get the project completed, grass planted, and then we'll have 2 seasons, fall and spring, to let the grass grow, to be available for us for the following year, spring. That's it.
Great. Some kids must be excited because just as I walk across that field, man, I wouldn't want to be running around on
It's
it
rough.
the way the kids
It is,
are.
it's rough. Yeah.
I guess at my age particularly, it would be troublesome. Any questions from the committee?
So when was it, did you say, spring of 2026?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
Fall.
it'll be spring of 26. 7, it'll be actually ready to be used.
Okay. that's
Yeah,
what
so
I'm-
we're, so fall of 25 and spring of 26 is when the grass, we don't want anybody on it until the grass is grown.
Yeah, and then the
So
fall-
then we'll use
27.
it.
Okay.
The first time in
I
27.
would probably say the best way to look at it, the full year of 2026. So it's not expect even
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah, don't even look at it.
Right, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Don't look at it and then 27 it'll be available.
I have a question. Are you hydro seeding or are you
No.
doing commercial seeding?
Here's what you-
Is it a money issue or?
Um,
The reason I ask
I'll
is
double check. I'm not,
hydro seeding seems to be somewhat like putting down turf.
yeah, I'd have to double check to see what it is. I may have misspoken. I'm not sure.
Not a big deal, I'm just curious. Yeah.
If I can't find it, I'll let you know.
Any questions from the folks online? No, and as a side note to this, I know we got a project closeout Mike signed off on, so
Yes,
I
that's
think
for
we've
the
got that on the
design.
agenda
The
as well.
design phase.
For the
yeah,
original,
For the original.
yeah.
Yeah. Couple years ago.
So we got that behind us, hopefully.
No, that's great. As I said,
And you did say you've applied to the Conservation Commission and they're scheduled you for a meeting.
Yeah,
later this
February
month.
20th, we have our meeting. Yep.
good. I mean, I guess appreciate you coming, appreciate you keeping us informed.
Glad to see things moving forward.
Very happy to see things moving
Yes.
forward. If there's anything you need from us, if there's anything we can help with, let us know. I probably should have asked this of Father Bills too, but the last question on the thing, you know, when's it make sense to have another update? I mean, I think we've talked about anywhere 3 to 6 months between updates. Kind of depends on the project flow. If you're gonna get enough done to make it worth it, as long as we know you're moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, once we go out to bid and we get the results back from that, then.
Maybe that's not.
Yeah, that'd be a good time
Yeah.
to, and when do you think that would be? Would that be in the next?
I don't know how
3
long
months?
that takes. Like I said, like, I'll say
Like March,
April
yeah.
1st, we're gonna send out to bid. I don't know how long that process takes to get out
So
there.
June, would that make sense? Well, that's really in the middle of your season, right? The end of it.
So say July.
Yeah.
July would work.
Okay. All right.
Excellent.
Yeah, Michael, just to, point out, Father Bills did say when they want to meet again, they did fill in that.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say to them, we may not need to meet every 3 months if we know they're going along that. I saw that as when, after John had left, and I didn't want to bring it up to Emily, so. But they did say 3 months would be fine. So thanks, guys. That's good. Keep up the good work. Can't wait to see the field.
Thank you very much. I'll find out the answer for you and I'll get back to you.
Don't kill yourself.
No. We'll take care of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Next up, we have the Old Stoughton Music Society, storage equipment. Ed's here. Introduce yourself for the recording, I guess, because you don't have a camera. You forgot to ask Smack. No big deal. We do have a recording, so.
The owl.
Well, good evening. My name is Ed Quigley. I'm the president of the Old Stoughton Musical Society. And I'm very happy to have the opportunity to update you on our progress and our being very close to completion. The paper I just gave out, and I'm sure you can scan it for the other ones just later.
I'm putting it up.
Do it right now. But the one here is a little bit different. I did it in 3 parts. The first thing is I do want to extend my thanks to the committee for supporting us in our need, of preserving the Stoughton's musical heritage. But we're not a museum. We're an active, living, breathing group. And that's why some of the things that we've asked for were added into our request, staying well underneath the ceiling of what town meeting had voted approved. What I gave before you are the list of things that are purchased and delivered, and I can say installed in the office as of right now. So pretty much everything is in place. The last few things we did need, because we had file cabinets donated to us that we did not have to purchase, but the file cabinets didn't have any of the railings on the inside that allowed you to hang the hanging files, so we had to buy things to go in there. So we do have those now. I don't miss all the piles of cardboard boxes we had in the office. They're now safely in metal cabinets and easily found when we need to. We're preparing to start our new season next Monday. And it took no time at all to find the music, where it was, how many copies we had. So we're moving in the right direction. And the last thing that I did put on the bottom is a request from our board at the last board meeting, is that although we've done a little bit under $4,500 out of the $7,500 that was approved. And what our request would be is to buy a video camera setup so we could document our concerts. You know, it gone are the days when you had a local newspaper that did all the write-ups on everything that was done. This would allow us to film the concerts. We have the digital storage for them. And the prices we saw are anywhere from $300 to $600. That's a camera, kind of directional mic, and then a tripod so it can be set up. We're consulting with SMAC and with the high school video people to find out, because we don't need a big professional setup. We don't have thousands of people at our concerts yet. When that time comes, we'll probably be able to afford it on our own. But we do want to be able to make high quality video that we could then put up online for people, and we could also store away for future reference. And again, a special thanks to all of you around the table. Special thanks to the people at Town Hall, especially Chris Beaton in the procurement office. He's made this process very simple and very seamless. And I do have a special thanks to our friends at the Stoughton Historical Society, because we've been in there a lot more than we've been in there for years, probably. And there have been times where some of their members have been there while we're working, they've been lending us a hand. So we greatly appreciate that as well.
Excellent. Thank you for the update. Again, thanks for coming in, and we're very happy to help. I mean, that's what we're here for. We have the advantage, and great to see projects that I think will go over well. I think the town can really appreciate, and the more people that learn, obviously such an historic thing that we have in town is a great thing. Questions? I see John Lenahan had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Just wondering, does SMAC cover any of their concerts?
Not at this point, and part of the reason for that is our concerts are our major fundraisers. And we want people to attend the concerts. Don't wait till they come out for free, because otherwise we won't be around that much longer. We do get grants, but grants assist us, but I mean, other than a director and accompanist, our other big expense is music. Music is no longer inexpensive. And gone are the days when people would kind of run off things on mimeograph machines. You know, it's not legal. So we purchase the music, so we have the rights to use it. We do have the ability to do what they call e-prints now, which we buy an electronic version of, and then we pay for a minimum number of copies that we can print. But then if we need to print additional copies, we pay for those additional copies. But so that's one of the reasons we haven't done live recordings at the moment, because it's our main fundraiser.
Yes, try to balance the extra exposure you might get with the loss of revenue that you put into it is the challenge. Any other questions?
Way back, I remember you had the issue with the dehumidifier. Is that all squared away now with this, or is there still a need for that?
No, we're fine.
Yeah, okay. Smart with that. Okay, thank you.
The one comment that I'd throw out there, Ed, in terms of the camera, was not part of the original request. when we found out we could save all that money on the cabinets and the question came up about the computer and storage, kind of fit in really good with the original request in terms of preserving the historical nature of what you got going. I think at this point, it would not be fair to town meeting to continue to spend money on additional things because we have a balance left over. Depending on how the committee may feel, it may be worth asking as a separate project.
This is our final request. And just notice in the report, I think will be done in this fiscal year. And this is the last thing we were looking for. And it, as I said, it came from our board meeting last month.
Anybody anybody else on the committee? John's got his hand up again. I don't mean again, John. John's got his hand up.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just thinking and you know, the fact that they've come before us, before making such a purchase, I do think it is keeping with the spirit of preservation that we talked about previously, in that it's just another form of preservation and literally they're making history every day. So when they're still performing, so I myself wouldn't have a problem with getting the camera and the mic and such, the tripod. I think it is sort of in keeping with a lot of the stuff we were trying to achieve.
Anyone else? I mean, the second thought I had on it, John, as well, is that as opposed to preserving the past, we're talking about being able to preserve things in the future. And I'm not trying to be a stickler. If the committee wants, it is relatively small money and Ed did a great job in not spending money where he didn't need to, but I mean, you could have run out and bought new cabinets when you find a chance to save the money, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with John's point that it is in the line of preservation. We have had other projects where we've drawn the line and said, well, that wasn't in the original project, so we can't do it. I think in this case, I would be okay with, as John said, since this is in the spirit of preservation of okaying it, even though this may come up as an individual thing in any future project when people, you know, suggest one more thing that wasn't in the project, whether, I guess we'd be setting the precedent, well, we will accept that if the committee thinks it's appropriate at the time. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily take this as setting a precedent. We're talking about it and it's the will of the committee. I mean, so certainly if someone wants to make a motion. John?
I'll make a motion that we accept this as being in this purchase, additional purchase, as being in the spirit of preserving these performances for the future, for posterity, that we grant this. And I appreciate the fact that they came to us. We've had other cases where they've gone off and done other things and we let it go. But in this case, they've come to us before they made the purchase and have done so well in saving money on the other stuff that I like this. And I'm sorry, I wandered off my motion. I'd like to make a motion. We accept.
I think Barry will turn that into a good motion. Seconded by
Barry.
Dwight. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Reese? John?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
And I will support it as well, for all of the very good reasons, but especially in both cases. And you came to us before you went out and got a computer. Committee had a chance to talk about it. I mean, I think that's what we're here. It's the will of all of the members. And I mean, I brought up the concerns, not to say no, but just, I feel better that we threw it all out in the open, had a conversation, and as a committee, we agreed to do it. That's fine.
John's got a good compelling argument.
Yep.
So.
Ed made the argument. John helped fill in the rationale, I guess. But,
And just to remind you that the minute the performance is over, it has become part of our history.
yes.
Just a question, how much would that cabinet, filing cabinet cost, had you purchased new?
Well, it's a 5-foot lateral cabinet, 5 drawers high. The prices we were looking at were around $2,500 to $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a good trade-off, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We were able to get to them.
Okay,
I guess the
I know,
next,
the prices are insane.
yes, I guess the next time we see you, well, we may not need to see you again because this project will be.
Well, as I said in the update, that I assume will be all ready to close out this fiscal year.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. This was an excellent
Well, thank you.
project and
yeah, no,
I think it's run well and I appreciate it.
I can tell you the people that now, when they're in the office, to start to get them music collated for the new season. We actually have some room to work.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, next up on the agenda is an update on the historic site signs. Dwight McCarron, hopefully with a little bit less feedback.
We have all the bases constructed and are stored at the Armory. I'm considering, I think it's fair to give CO Graphics the money that they've expended for the bases and the work on the signs, the actual images and narratives is continuing. Hopefully we'll be done by the end of the summer.
Have they given you an invoice for that or?
They haven't, but in the past, one time they did suggest we do it. In this case, I may be proactive and say, okay, you've expended a certain amount for these heavy steel bases, which are probably half the cost of the project. So I'm comfortable with paying that now and then paying the balance of it when we do the images.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair thing to do. We'll see when we get to the treasurer's report. I did see in Munis a purchase order being cut, which I thought was great, to Co. So in line with what you're saying, it's most of the time I'm focused on actual payments as is looking at the record of what's going on, but we can in Munis as well see. So we knew behind the scenes, in addition to the update that Dwight did, that the work was going on. So that's a good thing.
So what did you see for what purchase order did you see?
We'll get to it on the treasurer's report.
All right.
It's in there's a list of stuff, so.
Okay.
You may be able to explain more about what it is. It's just a line that showed and it said Co-Graphics and the amount and stuff. So you can probably tell us more about what's on it, but we can cover that as part of that. Any other questions, concerns, comments from members?
You think you'll be, once the weather changes for the better, you think you'll be able to get going on installing them?
Well, then the bases can be installed before the actual images are done. But, the hard part is for us to get the images, the pictures, the commentary, the proofreading, the back and forth. That's what's taking the time.
Yeah.
The putting into the bases is fairly simple, but it's for us to have something to put on them. The bases can go in before that, site selected, but the second part of it is the hard part.
I'm not trying to rush the process. I mean, if it doesn't make sense to put the bases in and have them just stand naked, then don't do it.
Question.
Rich?
Dwight, in regards to the installation of the bases, is that part of the contract or is that done by volunteers?
That's done by DPW.
Okay. Thank you.
Like the ones at Glen Echo, at Cape and Reynolds, those were put in by, once I went around with someone from DPW and said here, here, and here, and then they put them in. And then later CO Graphics came and put the image on top of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do it at a time when it's convenient for the DPW. I think basically would rather not have them sitting there blank. So you try to coordinate it, but
I didn't realize that CO was not doing the whole installation.
how about, Dwight, did we do anything ADA compatible wise based on the conversations we've had at the last couple meetings? Any braille, any change in where we might put it to make it a little bit more accessible? We able to help?
The exact site hasn't been chosen for each one. It's sort of generally known, but I'll simply keep that in mind when I point the spot out to them. Generally, it's close to the road, but it's usually not the one at the train station and the fire station certainly will be right on asphalt. Other
Yeah.
ones are gonna be off the road a bit, but that's something just to keep in mind when we put the sites down.
Yeah, again, I think going back to the conversations we've had that Cynthia brought up at the public hearing, the more we can do of that, the better. It's a good thing. Anything else on,
I was just gonna ask, is there a database online that shows the signs that someone can go to from their home?
No, but that's part of the completing this process is to have that database. Certainly by the time we have the 2026 300 celebration, that's our goal to have all of that put together.
Thank you.
okay. We've got you again, Dwight, for the Glen Echo proposal.
Well, Conservation Commission heard our proposal and the basic beef was for the fencing, so that Jerry and others had always wanted stone fencing. So they are holding out for boulders, and we're not going to approve it until there was some reconciliation made about that. In the meantime, Paul Jaffoon told Eric Coleman that boulders are available and can be supplied at less cost than the fencing. It was actually pointed out that the cedar fencing came from a suggestion from CPC, which is not exactly how I remember it, but in any case, if we go back and say we are going to put in boulders, not cedar fencing, Conservation Commission will, according to them, give their blessing. But it did not happen at the last meeting.
No, that's good. I mean, obviously save money. I don't recall that the CPC asked for the cedar fence, and I thought it came in because we had a picture of what it was gonna look like. We may have agreed that it looked nice. And I think we asked to put it on the other side of the road as well, John. You had brought up a concern with that, but we didn't necessarily request how they were gonna keep people from going on the grass, but I guess I wish Conservation had mentioned that 5 or 6 months ago, that they would prefer boulders, but
It makes sense.
I'm more than happy.
They're long lasting. They don't require maintenance.
Yeah,
It costs probably a third
right.
to do it. And we have boulders. We got lots
Yes,
of
we
boulders.
do. I mean, the issue partially was DPW with the difficulty, the extra time it takes to mow around them. That was an objection on their end, but I think given that Conservation Commission wants them, we're okay with them, that whatever difficulties there are in mowing around the boulders will just have to be dealt with, and the boulders are what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I hope Conservation Commission will move a little quicker and get it done. I mean, I'm excited especially to see Pavilion. I think that Pavilion is gonna be such a great thing for people all summer long, have a place to get a little shade. Granted, you go under the trees, but
Yes, they had no objection to the pavilion. I mean, there was commentary back and forth. It came down to finally the line was drawn about the fencing, and they chose to make that an issue. So, but I think that has now been resolved, and the next time they meet, we will tell them boulders have been okayed. They will give the thumbs up, what we hope, and we can move on with an article that Concom has approved.
Can I make a
Great.
suggestion? Just to make sure, you get on Concom's agenda for their next meeting, just so it doesn't.
Right. Well, they did, they continued us. So, but you're right. Because they continued us, one would think that we're automatically on the agenda, but
yeah, no,
due diligence is appropriate. I'll grant you that.
yeah. Unfortunately, if Jerry were here, we could kind of push the issue with him, but whatever, we'll get there and good. Keep up the good work. I mean, I hope. I mean, technically, it was on the warrant that was presented to the Board of Selectmen last night.
Correct.
We approved it contingent upon getting that Concom, so they're cutting it close on us, but as long as they do it, then, I mean, it'd be great to get it done this year.
Right. And the fact that it says fencing, we're assuming that that's a general enough term, so stone boulders can be included under the general term fencing.
Yeah, and, it can be explained at town meeting that we've got an alternative to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish that's gonna cost us less money.
I like it.
Town meetings don't like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Dwight.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Dwight. Last but not least, we have Caven Reynolds, Mr. Terry.
Okay, well, I've got some good news. The Stanton Foundation sent us a letter last week, about a week and a half ago, saying they'd like to give us another $12,500 to do what we would like to do. We didn't get done on initial funding from them. And it could include anything that we would like to think about, and one of the things that the engineering came up with is that we might consider video surveillance positioned on the top of the gazebo, pointed at the dog park, because it's a dog park project.
Yeah.
And that would give us a good view, God forbid something happens, we'll at least have a record of it. So that we can, the person could substantiate their claim, I was bit by the dog, or this person assaulted me, or whatever, or I fell down. So that's being vetted right now by Fran Brignetti. She's already contacted the company that was involved up at Glen Echo. And they're trying to get a quote together that will be for a wireless solar powered camera, because there's no electricity down in that area,
Yeah.
but the server would be in the house where there is electricity, so we could archive it there. And it may cost more than $12,500. We're not sure yet. The camera system up at Glen Echo cost $18,000, but that was electric.
Yeah.
So we don't know yet. The important thing was we had to notify Stanton Foundation by March 31st that yes, we wanted to use the funding, and we were trying to come up with some ways in which we could spend it. They said, fine. So Fran is pushing hard with her to get a quote. It may not work out, and then we'll have to come up with some other thoughts. One of the thoughts was, much like Canton is proposing to do with their community, their dog park as a push, give each resident or each person who is wishing to have their dog there an electric fob key. So you go to the town hall, you prove that your dog is licensed and has its rabies shots, which we require too. We go on an honor system. That way, anybody using the Canton dog park would have to have that fob to get in. I actually spoke with Rick Stanton Foundation when this first came up and asked them what their thoughts were. And I said that obviously the Canton could say only Canton residents, or it was open to the public. He said some of their parks have that fob, but in terms of exclusivity to the town resident, they do not get involved in that question. That's outside their, right. So that's a thought. Administrative wise, whomever, recreation of the town handling that might be more than those two agents could deal with. So we're considering that as a possibility, but on the low end.
Yeah.
And in between the camera and something else, engineering's come up with a few other things, but we're pushing for the camera.
Yeah, no, I think the camera's a great idea.
Second update is the official turning over of the project at Cape and Farm from the contractor to us. A letter of this is the term, notice of substantial completion. Right now, 99% of that project is complete. The only thing left to do is the hydro seed the area on the Pine Street corner.
Yeah.
Which they've done a phenomenal job. They can't do that till spring. So all these things that are pending are spring related when the ground is thawed. We've got a few little areas around the pathway where there's a little divot, and we're concerned about an ankle turn. That will be picked up as well. Secondly, or lastly, is the removing the erosion areas. They're frozen solid, so that'll come out in the spring as well. And the other items are after this park is done, this whole project is done, and that's basically working with recreation and some volunteers on putting together a fee structure for the community garden, which will basically be designed to pay for the water we use. That's going to be the expense, water that the town provides to the gardeners. And in some of my research, Needham has a raised bed garden complex, like we have. Their beds are a little bit bigger. They're 12 feet long by 4 feet wide. Ours is 8 by 4. And they charge $120 per 12 by 4 foot bed. If you do the numbers, just extrapolate that, it would come in around $80 for us. I don't know how that's going to fit with the mindset of our people who want to use it Is it too much? Is it not enough? So I spoke with a few other community gardens and I actually left messages, I haven't got answers back. But that's where we're going right now. We're trying to plan for the community garden opening in the spring. Working with recreation. And anything else?
Can I ask how many garden beds you have?
37.
Thank you.
There'll be, we will design a little layout showing the spoke, configuration. Each bed will be numbered 1 through 37, so that we can say, you're at bed number 2. And so on. And it's very similar to what others have done, and I'm basically using their models for our model.
Are all of them the same size?
Yes. Some are standalone, others are doubled up, like if this was a bed and this was the bed, it had 8 foot, 8x4, 8 foot by 4. The nice part about the 4-foot width is someone in a wheelchair or not able-bodied could reach in 2 feet. This was 4 feet.
You can still get.
Halfway and go around the other side. One, it gives accessibility to people who aren't able-bodied. Secondly, you're not walking and compressing the soil, which is not a good thing in a garden. Community gardens that have raised beds, you get more for your buck, bang for your buck in terms of producing food. And the rules of the road are being developed as we speak. In terms of what you can't grow, like invasive plants. You can only use organic fertilizers and pesticides or no. Companion plants that ward off insects and things like those are things that. So there's a number of rules which are consistent with other community gardens on the concept of organic and sustainability. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, it's a great little area. And I was up there last week covered in snow with the dog and you had said they had fixed this, but the area where my dog got down on, they did a nice job blocking that in. I had to scrape away the snow to see it, but I'm like, it looks like it was meant to be that.
Oh, well, one of the things that they did do that John Lenahan talked about is those parking areas on the Pine Street side, when you back in, there's a rain garden behind there. And I mentioned John's concerns about something to let you know you get near the edge of the drive of the parking space. Then behind, they chose to use boulders, and their rationale was that most people's cars have backup cameras.
Yeah, it's
Most, not all. I tried, John, to get something tall, but they went with the boulders that were free. So, I don't know if you can listen.
No. Well,
he's got his hand up, but he's on the phone.
my car doesn't have a backup
He's
camera, but
multitasking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, you got a question? Comment?
Yes, I just wanted to suggest, for the dog park, one other consideration. I don't know if it's out there already, but a shelter along the path with a bench on it, is super popular at another dog park I go, and really, it becomes a social center where people sit down while their dogs are running around and really chat. And so it's a very positive sort of component.
We do have benches there. There are several. Have you
There's
been to
benches
that?
and a picnic table?
Yeah, no, well, no, this is a shelter, almost like, a mini version of what we're doing at Glen Echo that sits over the bench and path. So it's something that, if it's a little drizzly out or rainy out, people sit under there and talk while their dogs are running around.
Actually, that idea came up regarding this $12,500 monies that we didn't expect. It's funny you should bring it up. I was down in Wareham, which is another Stanton Foundation funded project last October. And there was only one person there, and he and I got chatting and with my wife, and he says he brings his dog to a lot of places, and I told him about our project, and he said, I wish the Falmouth Dog Park, where he's from, but he was in Wareham that day, had a shelter like that. He said, what do you think? And I said, and I sort of blurted it out. I'd tell you, it's foul weather here. Your dog's out in the rain. Why shouldn't you be? I mean, but I do understand your point of view. But I think, if we have some money to spend and I spend it on video surveillance versus that, I'd probably go with video surveillance. But it's not out of the question.
Just another alternative. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would make the point that the dog park here in Stoughton has a lot more shade than most dog parks.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
he's talking
I'm
about-
thinking more of the rain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And we do have a pavilion. You could go,
the
the
gazebo.
gazebo, yeah.
right.
Although dog.
Yeah.
Technically, it's in the community garden.
Right, but the rules of the dog park state that you will be in visual and voice command of your dog with your leash in hand, standing by in case something goes
Yeah.
wrong. So that is a hard, fast rule of many of the Stanton Foundation projects. And I took that version almost verbatim from the Atkinson one, which was a Stanton funded.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're on the same page. We have to figure out how to use this money the best way, this extra 12,000. Unfortunately, the letter that came said, and I'm not sure, very things that the word sunset in the letter from Stanton Foundation says Stanton Foundation is going to cease this kind of program. I interpret it as we are at an endpoint in our timeframe based on my conversations with my contact at Stanton, that unfortunately we're just at the end and we would have been eligible for 2 more 12,500 payments had we get the project done a year earlier. So, but 12,500 is just as good as 3 times that when you didn't expect it.
Yeah, no, they've obviously been very generous and you did a great job with it.
And I do one last thing, in the little box top, the TM approval amount, that should read the initial funding of 278 in 2015 and then 463 from the 2023 town meeting. However, in the meantime, we had $294,000 distributed from or acquired from donations, Stanton Foundation, et cetera. So that brought that total down to 447. We still have some monies left over. Actually, engineering trying to determine exactly how much we have in case this 12,500 isn't quite enough to do the video surveillance. And can we use that extra little money to finish that project off? So that's where we're at. So
Yeah, we have some work to do with the accounting office on this
Right.
project, because they've been moving money around between those other donation accounts and the
Right.
CPA accounts and,
so far, the Stanton Foundation has been extraordinarily generous and cooperative.
but we should make, no, I don't know if it's on, I can't recall if I read it on the update report, but we certainly, when we do the closing report, we should highlight all that extra money, because that was a great benefit to the town.
And in my number, I didn't include the 25,000 that Stanton Foundation
Yeah.
provided for Warner Larson Architects to design this.
Right, I mean,
That's
it
completely
is,
outside the scope of this whole project.
but it's part of it and people should know. I mean, as a tribute to you and the good work you've done, but just, it may have saved us in terms of letting us get it done and with the money we had, and hopefully the
So
town's not gonna
with the
mess up those
290
appropriations on us.
294 plus the 25, that is 319,000. And all of this started because a woman, I can't remember her name, she's a town meeting rep. And she said at a polling station 3 or 4 years ago, when I went to vote down at the Hampton School, she said, Stanton Foundation, call them up. And
That's
I had
incredible.
no idea what she was talking about.
Maybe she'll see this and contact you.
And say, yeah, Dwight, another question?
Yeah,
comment?
this is about the community gardens. It's gotten by me. The first I've heard about the organic aspect of it. I mean, I'm a dedicated gardener and I try to be organic as much as I can, but I mean, organic means, pure organic means you can't use any like regular 10-10-10 fertilizer. It's got to be, I suppose, composted cow manure. If you say no pesticides whatsoever, well, there are organic pesticides like rotenone that, you know, are just as potent, but they're organic. So I'm just trying to clarify the aspect of this that makes it all organic. Where did that come from?
Basically, a number of community gardens like Norwood, Needham, Easton, they use those terms. And I'm trying to sort through that to find out what's the best compromise and still be on the organic side of the page. Because we don't want to introduce stuff in that sensitive area. I mean, we're at the edge of the wetlands. We're at the 50-foot buffer zone. So I think it's a good thing to educate our townspeople that organic means organic, but not be so restrictive that you can't have a reasonably good.
Okay,
So-
but you know, once you get into organic terms, then you're talking about you can't use 10-10-10 fertilizer because it's petrol based and it's very efficient. It comes in a bag, so that if you're going to be serious about organic, I mean, that's more stringent than you might know. And the fact that someone used chemical fertilizer, the 10-10-10, I don't see that as being, from my own personal view, as being damaging to the environment. But I'm just trying to clarify that if you're going organic and purely organic, then you're putting down some fairly stringent rules.
Dwight, thank you for that. That was something I hadn't thought
Yeah, no,
about.
I was gonna say, that sounds like good advice in terms of
Right.
the little booklet you were putting together or
Right.
copying that. More, I thought it was great. Richard shared it with us that just from your own, you take it home and do it. I'm not a gardener, so I know none of this stuff.
Actually, that pamphlet came from this Council on Aging.
Yeah.
They have a small number of gardens. They published that some years ago when that first came out. But I will look into that and I will consult with you, Dwight, on that.
Okay.
10-10-10 means nitrogen, phosphorus.
Nitrogen, carbon, and potassium, I believe. 10-10-10. I mean, so it's just, comes from petro. It's processed fertilizer as opposed to if you buy composted cow manure, which is more like 1-1-1, but it's, it's organic in some vague sense, even though the process by which they create it may not be organic, but it is, if you say you want to emphasize and prefer organic stuff, and you may have certain pesticides you want to ban, but for someone who's grown like potato, I don't know what crop people are going to be growing there, but there are some crops that practically, if you don't use, some kind of insecticide on, let's say, potatoes, which people won't, then it's very difficult to grow them. But I think it's just a question of saying we maybe preferences as opposed to absolute restrictions, but we can talk about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One last thing is that there is a list of not invasive plants that are prohibited from many gardens, whether they're raised or standard, like raspberries, for example. And it's a whole list that makes a lot of sense. So that document's getting put together and I will share it when it's completed, hopefully, in about 2 weeks. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
I just had one question too. So, as far as, has there been any type of game plan for a grand opening?
Well, we were hoping we could do it back in September, but we didn't have it when it was fair. So it's gonna be basically come up with a date that makes sense in terms of weather.
Okay,
And once we get the letter back signed on the substantially completed stuff, it's just a legal matter where the contractor turns the property back to us.
okay,
And we have plenty of town insurance for liability. That's not a concern, but it's just it's part of the construction documents that they have to return it to us and him sign the document. That was sent out by Fran Brutinelli, January 22nd. And engineering has promised to follow up on that tomorrow morning.
okay. And you said the house has electricity?
Yes.
Okay, and then I know that they're gonna eventually at some point redo that corner. Is there any timeline for that, do you know, as far as engineering is concerned?
You mean the corner on Pine Street?
Yeah,
All that has to be done is hydro seed. It's
okay,
done.
but I know the town was looking at that.
Road.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
the actual road.
That is, the engineering for that project has been approved in town meeting last year.
Right,
The anticipated cost of construction is close to $1 million to Craig, our assistant town engineer. So that's why this opportunity to get that line of sight cleaned up, cheap money, 45,000 would normally have cost about 100,000 had we gone out on a separate bid. So that's why it was taken out sort of out of sequence
perfect,
for
okay,
safety reasons.
great, good to hear.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we move into the administrative item. Chair's report, and I think I'm gonna hold off on anything because I got a bunch of stuff to talk about in the treasurer's report and with the closeouts and rescissions, so I will turn it over to Barry for administrator's report.
Okay, just take care of, give me a second to get my thoughts.
I mean, I'll fill in one blank, and I alluded to it. The warrant for the town meeting was presented to the Board of Selectmen last night. Barry got a note this morning saying it was approved. We're gonna talk about the issues that are there. They asked for some corrections. We made a couple of corrections to what they're doing, but we do have a few things that are on there that we want to talk about.
Yeah, well,
Just to update everybody, really. It's
yeah, I want to talk about the articles that we have on the agenda. And I'm sorry, Dwight, I'm gonna mute you again because we're getting some feedback. Anyway, the articles we have on the agenda, the first is the budget, and Michael has been working on that diligently, the last.
No,
Yeah,
I got a note the other day from Biz saying the surcharges is gonna be this. I'm like, well, typically Bill Rowe and Mary Jane last year gave us a whole form with all this information. I said, are we gonna get that? I mean, we'll work with you. And she said she would get it to me when she can, but then they presented just the number to the selectmen last night. So meantime, that to me said, yeah, we better be prepared. So I did one up and it is in the budget, and Barry and I went through it in detail this morning, but we'll go through it at a much higher level. We don't need to tick and tie where stuff came from that I was showing Barry.
right. In a nutshell, the budget is in two pieces. There's the article and the motion.
Right.
The motion is where all the nuts and bolts are. The article is a lot more general.
Yeah.
Okay. So the article exists, the motion needs to be
Right.
created. Okay, the next article is the Clanaco Pavilion and benches. And, if just bear with me for a minute, I'm gonna follow it up so that everybody can see it. This is the language in, okay, just gonna find it. Here we go. Okay, let me share this and get rid of what I am sharing. How do I do this? Oh, there it is, okay. So that's the wording as it appears in the warrant. I think we've seen this before. I'm just trying to remember, I'm just reviewing them, just showing you what's there. If anybody has any comments, this is what was approved. We actually have till tomorrow morning to correct anything that might not be totally correct. I don't see anything that's a problem with this particular article, but if anybody does, please speak up now, because we only have till tomorrow at 10 to correct it.
And the good news is we heard is we're probably gonna save a lot of money on the fence, so money wise, we should be in good shape. But
Yeah, that, it should come in within that budget. This we have seen.
Does anybody feel the need? We can read through it. I think we've done that in the past, but
Did it last time, right?
do you want to read through them,
Okay,
Barry?
sure, to see if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury pursuant to general law, chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, a sum of money to support the design, permitting, and construction of a new pavilion, permanent benches, fences, and other related equipment at Clanaco Park. Assessors map 070, parcel 104, or take any other action relative thereto, and the amount of money that will be presented in the motion is $180,000.
Yeah, and I think as we heard earlier, someone made the comment, boulders, fences, close enough so that we shouldn't have to worry about changing that, but.
Yeah.
There was a contingency with the, Conservation Committee, but that's been resolved.
No, that has
Not
not
fully
been
yet, because
resolved,
they have to vote on it.
Still have to vote on it. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's contingent on that. Okay.
but what Dwight had said is they kind of indicated they would be okay with it if we went with boulders. So,
Right, yeah, thanks for pointing that
Yeah,
out.
okay.
That is still a condition, and from our perspective.
Okay,
If my input, I would just say, I don't know that I can read. I don't know that they have to be read out loud, but maybe that's something else. But I mean, I can read them, but
Yeah.
this might,
That's really the only one we're gonna have to read, because the next one is the town hall, parks, pocket parks, and, the town engineer's office has written that article because it's partly CPA money and partly general fund money. So they said, we're gonna take over and write that article. So that's out of our hands.
Yeah, but we do have the next article, which is ours.
This is ours. We've reviewed this already.
And again, we submitted this. This is the one, we talked about it, I think, at the last meeting or the one before that.
Yeah, I think we approved the wording on this one.
We approved the wording. Biz had asked us to do something to allow her, to authorize her to make a transfer relative to the ban that we approved last year. That somehow created a discrepancy on their books that to me didn't seem like it needed to go back to town meeting, but they say this is what we need, so we put it together. I deliberately try to word this, for example, I took out the, or take any other action relative there too. To me, this is straightforward. You can move the money from this CPA account to this CPA account, and that's it. Because that's how I understood the problem to be for them, so. Didn't get any feedback from Biz, and they took it, they put it in, so we should be good to go. We'll find out in the meantime, but
Yeah.
it's just strictly an accounting issue in Munis
Yeah.
between the two funds.
Okay, and then there's closeouts. This isn't what we had submitted. This is an earlier version. We do have other versions and those will come up under the treasurer's report. But this is the format. And, the numbers will change, the contents will change, and, the total will change.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is something I've talked about at the last couple of meetings. I had identified 12 projects that I was hoping to get closed. Barry and I going through them, decided we better only do 10 of them, the other two being the Cape and Reynolds one, because we still don't have a clear picture of all the money moving around between the different accounts. So I don't
And
want
it's
to
still
close
underway.
one and then find out we come up short on the money. John, got a question?
Oh, it's on mute.
You're muted.
Apologies. There's one there that I see, Glen Echo Recreation Facility, return to CPS Historic.
Yeah, we-
CPA,
That's one of that Barry had corrected it for them, but,
And I've already corrected it again.
and we corrected it again after the meeting last night, so that should
So
get
w-
corrected. We replaced that list with a list of 10 with the correct wording on that, but
Yeah,
good pickup.
I can show you the new list. In fact, that's probably what I should do. Hang on a moment. If I can find it. Okay. This is well, you can't see it. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, now everyone should be able, well, when it comes up, you'll be able to see it. So that is the full, complete list. We haven't voted on all of them yet. In fact, the last one, the storage equipment, that's probably gonna come off because they're going to have that additional expense. We just put everything on that might be closed out. We
Yeah.
can always take things off of it. We can't add things to it after the fact. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's an issue on that one. And John, one again, you can see where I've tried again to correct them that it is undesignated for the Glen Echo, not historic. This was something I just sent out this morning. So that is the
Thank you.
full list. And we've already voted to close out, let me get my list. The second one, the railroad depot restoration, although Biz says if a fund has been totally spent down to zero, it's self-closing. It doesn't have to be closed by town meeting. We have also already closed, I'm sorry, I take that back. We have not closed that one out. We've closed out the first one, which is the fire station for $111,449.50.
We voted that last month.
Yes, the other two we voted were the West Street Barn, which is about halfway down for 2,000, and the one right after it, the Cedar Hill.
Cedar Hill.
boxes for 212.99. The rest we have not voted on.
Yeah, and we've got a few to vote on tonight, and as Barry said, according to Biz, if it goes down to zero, it automatically closes because there's no money left to deal with.
if I can just suggest, I think it's good to keep it on the list just so town meeting hears about it being closed out.
I agree. I agree.
You mean if, even if it's zero, is that what you're
Even
saying?
if zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought of that too, and I think I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
Okay. So let me get back to and
So
find
you'll
my,
send a new one to Mark in the morning, Barry, without the OSMS?
no, I'll leave it on. We can always take it off.
We can always pull it off.
I can always pull it
Yeah.
off. I don't want to send them too many changes. Let them make the
Okay.
changes that I sent them before I start changing them again.
Yeah, because it's the second or third time you've sent those changes. So
Right.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And hopefully by town meeting, we'll be ready to say, okay, it's closed, but the amount is different.
But let me go back to the warrant again. Okay, so that's the closeout. I think that's our last article on the warrant.
And there was a comment there in the italics, that
Yes.
goes away because what we'll see is the additional bills on the
The fire-
fire engine were paid, so that amount is now settled.
Right, that's down to zero. now.
That's down to zero, I
Let me
think.
go back in case there were any that I missed that we didn't go. There's the budget. And again, as I was saying, this is the article. It's very general.
Yeah.
The other things, I did the closeouts. The other thing that we have. on
Back
the
at
warrant,
17 was the rescissions. Is that what you're going for?
rescissions, yes, this will, we'll vote on this under the treasurer's
Yeah.
report. We have one rescission for the original, this is money that was not borrowed, that was authorized to be borrowed. And you see it at the top there where my digital hand is here. And then going back even
Well, there was
further.
both, because that still showed Cape and Reynolds, but again, we'll talk about both of them in the treasurer's report.
Oh, you're right, right.
Yeah. That was another last minute note we got, hey, can we rescind? We closed the first project, Glen Echo, we closed last year. It was already voted down as closed, but when Biz first came to us and said we can close it, there's only $100 left on it.
You know, this isn't.
And I said to him, no, there's $73,000 left on it because we never spent that money. And they said, oh yeah, but we never carried it forward. Well, apparently on the borrowing side, they carried it forward. So now they want to close that side. Could have done it all at once, but whatever, they caught up to us.
Yeah, well, I was on the previous draft, so that, what I showed you so far. Okay, yes, so
So this was,
this is
okay.
the updated
Yeah.
version. We have taken off the Cape and Reynolds. This is of the rescissions. And then I'm going back up one more time to, let me find it. Okay, this one right here. This is things that are under the sunset bylaw, and that confused the heck out of me because I was at last November's town meeting and we rescinded the sunset bylaw of 2023, which this refers to up here. So it turns out the Attorney General's office has to, I knew that, the Attorney General's office has to approve bylaw changes. They have 90 days from the time it's submitted to do that. I don't know the exact date when it was submitted. The town meeting was around the 18th of November. So one way or another, either the Attorney General office will approve it, or it's like a pocket veto. It goes into effect without their comment after 90 days.
But because it wasn't approved by the Attorney General, the town had to proceed and be prepared to have it, even though in case they said no, they had to have everything ready. So
Right.
they kind of surprised us with that.
And they put in the wrong number. So,
Well, when they wanted to rescind the borrowing, the correct number was 118,000.
right.
When we convinced them they didn't need to do that, or they shouldn't do that because we can't close the project until we get a complete picture of the accounting, they simply moved it over to the extension list. And I sent them a couple of notes explaining it's a different number for the extension. There's $152,000 of unspent funds, but only 118,000 in effect, they've already borrowed more than they spent on that project. So we're sitting with a credit in the project in that regard. But it's two different issues. It's confusing, but there was two different issues.
And this one, as I say, it should be moved by the time town meeting rolls around.
It should be moved.
This would just be dismissed, my guess is.
Bobby, a question that you did.
I'm just trying to figure, you borrow, if the project was 100,000 and you borrowed $150,000, I'm trying to come away, because it seems like you'd get a specific number, you put in a purchase order, and draw it down from that. I don't understand why you would borrow more.
Keep that thought till we get to
Okay,
it.
all right.
I don't have an exact answer for you,
Okay,
but
I'm just trying to follow your thought.
it's worse than what you're thinking.
Okay.
You'll see it.
Okay, so that's pretty much my town meeting review. Again, not a lot to update. I'm just gonna go
No,
through my
but
notes.
good progress. I mean, this is, I mean, last year we had so many, the last 2 years, we had so many articles and motions going at the table that there was a lot of work going into this part of it, but
Yeah.
right now, we really only got the one. As Barry said, Mark had said to us, no, they're gonna put in and read the article for the town hall work and note that 820,000 is coming from the CPC.
I can show that as long as we're here. Let me show that to everyone. Why do I not find it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry. It's in the middle of the page. That was written by, I assume by the town engineering department. It mentions us and it also mentions,
Another grant they're going in.
funds from the treasury in the first line. So. And it mentions us in the note at the bottom. That, we've,
Yes, that's Article 33, so that'll come up just before our budget.
right. So we don't have to write any articles or motions for that particular article.
Any other questions on town meeting stuff? Okay, moving on. Next up is approval of minutes. We got 2 sets of minutes that Barry sent out, November 13th and December 4th. I know I read through them. Barry and I had a couple of minor typographical type things that we fixed. Any questions, comments? Did anyone have any concerns with anything that was in the minutes that? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion. I'll entertain a motion to approve one or both sets of minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve both sets of minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments? No discussion? We will take a vote. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Maurice?
Yes.
John? Dwight?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, Barry, if you could pull up the treasurer's report. In part, I want to see that nice cover with,
Hold on. Oh, you know, I know where it is.
It's in the drive.
It's in the drive, right. Hold on.
there's even a folder in the drive with a whole bunch of back. I just downloaded stuff off of my computer and said, oh, if anybody wants to go back and see them, it's.
Okay, let me figure out how to get this shared. Hold on. There it is. Okay.
I love that nice colorful logo. I figured we paid money for it. We've got to start using it on things, so I threw that in there. If we can flip the page, Barry, page 2, my standard. Here's a list of the things we're gonna go through. We're gonna go through very quick update on operating expenses, because hasn't been a lot spent since last month, but there's been a couple changes. A list of the project invoices, the list of the purchase orders that I mentioned, a quick summary of the projects in process, the closed article or the closed items for town meeting, the rescissions for town meeting, and then a quick look at the budget. So we can go through some of this real quick. Next page is just the administrative expenses. I think the only change here is probably a couple weeks worth of wages for Barry, because we had it on January 6th. This is January 30th. But the other expense lines there, they did pay off some more debt. I think the debt year-to-date actual column, the debt went up 40,000 or 50,000, but that's just the timing of the payments. They make them throughout the year according to schedule. they will be all on budget because those numbers are known. It's like paying your mortgage. Typically, on most of our bonds, we pay principal once a year and interest twice a year. And I want to say we'll see it on the budget, still 12 or 13 bonds outstanding that are going through that, so pretty straightforward. Here is a longer list. This has 30 invoices that were paid between June 3rd, July 1st, and the end of January. Last month, there was only 13. Interestingly enough, on the end of January, you can see there all those Dandel constructions, which is Cape and Reynolds. And even though they were paid back in November and in October and September, they weren't on the list last month because they had put them into the project that was outside the CPA. And that's why I say, I'm a little uncomfortable with how much money they've moved around between these accounts that we will get to the bottom of before we let them close anything. But you can see all the different bills there. There's a lot of money that they've put out on that project. The Benson Road, you can see the 161, I think that was on last month's. And you can tell by the date, theoretically, the only new one should have been after like January 2nd, but there were some older ones that showed up, so I kind of repeated the whole list.
Benson Road, okay, I was looking for it.
Which one?
I wasn't seeing Benson Road, I see it now, it's
Oh, yeah.
Mead Taylor. under the
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
Okay.
So again, this list, I want to get to a better spot where we can do this, where it's a little easier. I put the project number on there, but most of us aren't going to know what those project numbers are without a cheat sheet. I have a cheat sheet in front of me, but you can kind of tell by some, like the Athletic Design Services, the Activitas, that's what we heard from Mike Tupin. He was talking about some of that stuff. The train station is pretty obvious and whatnot, so. Again, just we're paid out $736,000, although some of that goes back into, I think no, they're all fiscal 25 because it's after July 1st.
Right.
That throws a loop into conversation Barry and I had earlier that we'll see on the budget that I didn't think we were going to spend that much money. I kind of forgot the schedules, but we'll go on. Next page. This is a new one. I took out a Munis as well. This is purchase orders that have been cut. So these will show up, but they aren't yet paid. You can see the first couple of the antique fire engine stuff that Joe had. They cut a purchase order or a contract. I don't know which. This is all I see. But the 370,000, that was the bid amount I think that Matt got from Heller and Park. So obviously there's work going on. This is just more proof of what we already know because Larisse and Matt have told us that.
Actually, the very first one, not all of that will be CPA funds because we don't have that much money in that account anymore. That would, in other words,
they ended up paying $1,400 of that.
I can't remember, 14 or 17, 14, I think it's 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of that, will be covered by the Historical Society, Joe Christie said.
But if you go down, I think we'll see the co-graphics one for Dwight. I remember seeing something.
There it is.
Yeah, 16,980. I don't know if that's a single purchase order, if it's a contract, right? But I did see that amount, so I figured you'd want to see that. You can see the Nevco Sports, the Stoughton Youth Baseball, they've cut some kind of a purchase order or contract for 36. So I think this is encouraging. Sometimes when I look and I don't see money being spent, I'm like, yeah, we don't know what's going on. That's kind of why we pushed for a lot of these updates.
Right.
But this is just another view that things are going on, so I wanted to share it.
So these aren't necessarily invoices.
Those are not invoices.
They're not invoices, right?
Typically, before an invoice gets paid, the town issues a purchase order, and then when the invoice gets paid, late, when the work is done, an invoice would come in and get matched against it.
Right.
One or more invoices, like Dwight had mentioned. He may get from Co-Graphics an invoice for $7,000 to cover whatever the portion of the work that they've already done. And it would get applied against that, I assume that's how accounting works.
Posted.
So these aren't included in the first one, slide.
No, these are not, right. The first one is what cut checks paid. These are bills that will be paid.
Although, just, okay,
You may see some, there may be some overlap.
right, the very first one, 140781, is a partial payment
Of the
of
$2,100, yeah.
$2,100.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so yes, they can overlap. all I want to do is show that there's activity going on, that this is good news to us, that we can see people are doing things and working with the town hall and getting stuff done, so. I get excited by that. Next page. So again, this is the 15 projects that are in progress. And here you can see, so we've got the approval amount, the life. This is a chart we've looked at a number of times. I think I added fiscal year 2025 year-to-date actual expenditures. Those numbers are on that first list of 30.
Okay.
But there are projects on that first list that aren't in here because they're in the closing list, but. So you can see that it doesn't show anything's happened on Halloran Park, and yet when I look at the POs, I can see that we've moved a step forward. That's all. That's why I showed it this way. We'll condense it to make it easier, hopefully, to see once we get a better handle on some of the Munis stuff. And then here's the second group of the 12 projects that I was hoping to get closed, which may be 9 or 10, but you know what? 9 projects closing, that's the most we've ever done. I mean, that's a lot of work, and Barry's done a lot of work to get us to this, so I think it's great progress. And I made some notes off to the side, which ones we were voting on. And I guess we're gonna do it after the treasurer's report, Barry. I put in there that CPC 2.5, so we have a closing document to look at tonight on that. So again, we don't need to look too much at that slide. The rescissions, this was the note we got from Biz last week saying, hey, can we rescind the balancing amount on Glen Echo for 73.5 and the unborrowed funds on Cape and Reynolds for 118,000. And we just wanted to share it. I went back to them. I said, yeah, go ahead and rescind Glen Echo because we already closed the project. And we have another schedule, Barry. Can you pull that up on Glen Echo? Because you would ask me the other night to put something together.
Oh.
Just to show how we got to the 73.5.
Hang on a minute. It's in the drive that I'm in. So, yeah, okay, let me get out of it then. That's it.
Yeah. So this is actually the top half of this. Well, no, we didn't look at it because this project was closed in November. But that top half is what I would have included with the closing document. If we were going to town meeting, I mean, all the closing documents we have. Barry asked me if I could break down where the 73.5 came from.
I just want to point out the very first group of numbers, the total is $100.98. That is the amount that we canceled from Glen Echo to end the.
Right, and that was why I put this schedule together to show where that $100.98 that was closed out at the November special town meeting, because it was kind of a funky way to get there. Because when Biz first gave that to me, I said, there should be $73,000 left, because as you can see on the bottom, the approved amount was $1.5 million. We purchased the property and issued a bond back in September of 2012 for $1.205 million. Now, our total cost was you can see it a few lines above, $1,204,250. So at that point, they borrowed $750 more than we spent. And you can see that credit even further up at the top of the page. There was another bond issued in 2016 when we were doing the we were doing the conservation agreement. We did the
Conservation restrictions.
we did the survey of the property. I think so. That's probably the survey of the property, and then the bond premium was applied for $11,500. So out of the $1.5 million, we bonded and applied a premium of $1,226,500, which left us $273,500. 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was a long time ago, we rescinded $200,000 of borrowing. At one point, Bill Rowe had come to us and said, listen, you got $300,000 of borrowing left open on this project. Are you really ever going to spend it? We said, no, we wanted to keep some money to cover those conservation restrictions and whatever else. So we left ourselves 100 and we cut out 200 of it, or we left 73.5.
We left what's in there now.
And it's just been sitting there, of course, because when they closed it out, they told us there was only $100 left, which wasn't going to pay for the conservation restriction. Barry put together the project that was approved at town meeting for another $30,000 to pay for the conservation restriction, which would probably only cost us 10, I think. But all the behind the scenes stuff that was true. I like us to have a record that shows out and ties out to what's going to town meeting, and these will all be on file, and we'll just have it.
Okay,
Any questions on all that? Cause I just ran through a whole bunch of stuff, but I've been looking at that and doing a lot of work on it at various points, so it kind of is clear to me, but I don't think it's clear typically. Dwight? You're muted. Eric?
Hypothetically, we had the money in there to have paid for the conservation restriction, but we didn't access it or didn't know we had it, so instead we went for 30,000 in a separate article. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. I would say, yes, we had the money in there, but the town said, no, because of the way they had counted for it, the only cash that was available was the $100.98. A year later, they come back and said, oh yeah, but you still have $73,000 worth of borrowing.
well, I mean, the only way to have done it would have been to issue another bond to pay for.
Which theoretically is what should have happened, because that's what was approved by town meeting back in 2011.
Right, which we didn't.
Effectively, we converted it to cash.
Okay,
I made that argument last year that there was still $73,000 out there, but they weren't having it. We just said, well, we're just gonna go forward. We're gonna make it work in whatever way.
okay, I guess that's as much as I'm gonna understand on it, and I don't want to take any more time on it.
Yeah, no, and then this year, as they're closing out stuff, they're like, oh, wait a sec, we still have this borrowing capacity. I mean, if it would have happened again, it would be a much easier conversation with Biz, because now we're talking the same language on it, but it is what it is. So we told them, go ahead, close out the borrowing, we're done.
And as Dwight said correctly, we've already,
We've already approved more than enough money to cover the conservation restriction.
So she had to get to the 1.5 mil in order to close it out for the most part.
Yeah, she still had to,
Okay.
and in her defense, not only does this go back to 2011, it was in a different accounting system,
Yeah,
and data got transferred from one system to the other, so I can understand how it got very confusing and got lost on her. And I think I had said this before, the CPC piece of what she was going through with the sunset clause was really just a small piece of the aggravation. She worked very hard to get through that for the town, but yeah, let's go on to, I guess, back to the
go back to the other.
treasurer's report. All the way down,
Decisions, okay, we just,
and the Cape and Reynolds, yeah, we kind of alluded,
we said we're not gonna.
there's a lot of stuff going on there. I don't want them to close something and then come back 6 months from now and say, Rich, I can't pay these final bills because we closed it at a town meeting. I said, you can't do that to us. You gotta tell us. So we pushed it. So now we got, can you show that in a small, for a second, Barry?
I'm sorry, to, but how?
Shrink that. Can you see the whole page, or is that just so they see? This is the same format basically that we've used for the budget every year. With the top, there's 3 sections to it. We'll go through each section, but you got the top section, which talks about where the money's coming from, and feeding the middle section, which tells us all the money that's available. The first section tells us about the surcharge. The middle section tells us about how much money is available to be spent in the coming year. And the bottom section talks about where we're spending it. So now go back and blow up the first section. Community preservation surcharge, and this comes right off, we've talked the CP1. Bill always called this the net receivable, but it comes right off a report called the CP1. I'd rather see it as CP1, because then everybody knows where it came from and knows what it is. And you got the FY24 actual was $1,006,094. I tweaked it a little bit. We've always kind of grown at 1% a year, which is very conservative, because we know our surcharge is going to go up at least 2.5% a year, because that's what Prop 2.5 lets us do. But again, conservative way of growing it. And I rounded things off to thousands of dollars. I don't know. I don't think we need to budget to the pennies on this stuff. So that would imply that our surcharge in FY26 should be $1,026,026. Next section looks at the income for the revenue for the year, which starts out with the surcharge, and we've only got $1,000,640. And that's because I wanted to tie into the number that Biz used for Board of Selectmen last night, which is $1,157,640. I think I would argue, and I used to have this conversation with Bills, I don't understand why that 1,000,000,640 isn't the 1,026,000. You've showed me how you're growing it, why wouldn't you start with that number? And because he always called it a net receivable, I didn't even necessarily tie it together that it should be the same. It's $20,000, it's $25,000, it's not a big deal in the big picture. All it means is we're budgeting even that much more conservative. We should by all rights come in higher than that. The state reimbursement this year, Biz threw in 150,000 based, I think she said some conversation, usually the state sends out some guidance. That 150 is a low number, but the state finances, I think the way they look these days, that probably is a good number. I mean, typically they come in much higher, but conservatively the 150. The investment income here is a bit of a joke. I don't have the CP2, but I did look at it last night, and Barry and I looked at it today, but got some work to do to pull it together for you. We had $313,000 of investment income in fiscal year 2024. We had 200,000, which was a surprise to us in fiscal 23. And that was because of obviously the interest rate went from a fraction, 0.10 up to 2, 3, 4, 5%. Well, the way interest rates are today, we're still going to have $200,000 to $300,000 next year, but she didn't put that in. Again, it's only extra money that we know is going to come to us next year. The reserves and fund balances, this is the money we set aside every year. We put 10% into each of these three categories every single year. This is the cumulative total up through, it's actually a projected cumulative total up through June 30th of 2025, which is the starting point for your 2026 budget. So we've got 292,000 in open space, 594 in historic preservation, 839?
Yes.
839.
And 6.8 million in the undesignated fund. And again, that's the same format laid out. I will say I prettied up the headings just to make it a little bit more legible, but that's Bill's format that works very well. And then the guts of the budget is really the appropriations and reservations. Top line is the administrative expenses at 4.99%. Bill had a reason he didn't do 5%. It never made a whole lot of sense to me, but I was okay with using 4.99. It's a couple $100 difference. We won't spend $58,000, but we budget that. The extra will just end up in the undesignated fund. The long-term debt service, these are I think it's 12 bonds listed there. And this comes right off the schedules that came from Bill, updated for a couple of bonds that were only issued last year or the year before. But that's just the debt service. And in this case, because I have 292,000 we have in the open space, pretty much almost all of the debt service can come out of the open space account. Open space and recreation are a single account when it comes to the reserve. And most of those are recreation projects, but those are the projects we've approved, and every year we spend them down. Those numbers show up every year in the budget, a different amount every year because it goes down.
The header is missing on the column on the right. That's,
Well, because it's up off the page now, but
okay.
it's up above what we're showing. The far column on the right is the projected ending balance of the bonds at the end of fiscal year 2026 is $1,855,000.
So just that top one there, we're gonna pay out 71,925, and at the end of the day, we're gonna owe 425.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now that's the $1,205 bond that you saw on the earlier page that we've been paying since 2012. So that one is certainly coming down to a much more manageable. And you can see in the middle, one of the, the soccer field. And here's to your earlier question, Well, look at the high school tennis court and soccer fields. There's 3 different bonds that were issued for that project at various points in time during the construction of the high school. I don't know why. I mean, they do it because they're doing a whole bunch of town bonding. It makes sense to, increase the number a little bit and use it for the CPA stuff. So there's reasons behind the scenes. I don't know what, we're not involved once we pass it off to them and they do it, but
And
you
then-
can see the 3 different bonds. And in fact, one of them, this is the final year for it, the second one.
The one, the second, let me
I don't have in here, but we've looked at several times the debt summary schedule that shows the bond, when it was issued, the interest rate, the term, all that stuff, but we don't need to go through
That's
that.
this one, that's
Yeah.
a zero, at that point. And let me just, I think the column of expenditures, though, that's principal and interest.
Yeah.
together. Okay.
It's debt service. It's the principal amount and the interest amount, both get taken out of the reserve, and essentially, if you run down that column, that 71,925 is coming out of the open space reserve. And I applied each of these to the open space reserve until the open space reserve gets down to zero. At which point I have to go, and you can see the last one, 19,050, is coming out of undesignated. Basically, it's in our best interest to use up the restricted funds first, because we have flexibility with anything in the undesignated fund. So this is not new to me. Bill's always done it this way. It made a lot of sense. Estimated unissued debt service here. I left the line in only so I could point out that we're not budgeting it this year. Biz said we don't need to do it that way. Plus, we don't really have any new bonds. We're not going to be borrowing any new money, so we don't need to provide any interest for it. You can see the two articles, the town hall, Pocket Park, 820 is coming out of the undesignated. We talked about that being an open space. There's no money left in the open space reserve, so it has to come out of there. And the same with Glen Echo Pavilion and Benches, the 180. There's a budget in annual reserve, which is really just those three numbers, the 57 in the first column of numbers, the 57,766 is the admin, the 752,582 budget annual reserve, and then the reservations where we set aside 10% of the budget into each of the three reserves, open space, historic, and housing, is the 347,292. And of course, that has to add back to the budget that we had up above, 1,157,640. And then it shows us the totals for each of those columns along the page. And the bottom line tells me what I expect the net reserve balances to be at the end of June 30th, 2026. So again, this is not a new format. It's just updated numbers to reflect this year's activity. Biz had given the Board of Selectmen the 1,157,640. It's close enough for what we're doing. I sent this to her. Hopefully she'll come back and say, yeah, great, you saved me all the work, because should be doing. My concern is if anything's changed behind the scenes that I know about. I'm working off a debt schedule, but I know we haven't issued any new bonds. I don't imagine they've refinanced anything. But just to make sure I want them to buy into it, that's the budget.
And so just to confirm those two red numbers, we're not borrowing anything, we're just paying them out. The 820 and the 180 for projects.
Right, yeah, everything in this chart is actually a cash payment.
Okay,
The debt service is a cash payment,
okay.
because you're paying it every year. The budgeting for the administrative account, which we never spend all of it, we're allowed to put aside 5% of our total budget. Yeah, so this is assuming that these two articles pass. We budgeted for it, so the money will be there.
Yep, okay.
And again, the heading that's off the page, if we were borrowing anything, it would be in that column between the undesignated and the ending balance of the bonds. There is a column there, but I gotta think about that, because if we're gonna roll the screen, we lose the heading. It makes it a little bit more confusing, but we can,
There's-
I can
there's
see it all the way up
talking
there.
about,
Yeah.
New borrowing.
new borrow.
Yeah, so that should come out.
And we will highlight that because the finance committee and town meeting level, we're
Oh,
not
absolutely,
borrowing any
absolutely.
money, so. And again, I like the colorful logo so much, I put it back on this page.
And
Michael,
shout out-
can't you just freeze the heading?
Can I what?
Can't you just freeze the heading so that it, when you scroll?
You can on an Excel spreadsheet. I don't know if you can when you're throwing something up on the screen here.
Well, it
Oh.
would have to be, oh, yeah, right, it would have to be an Excel spreadsheet that I mean,
Or typically, in the past, sometimes what I've done is I've made it 3 separate slides in the PowerPoint. So that you can kind of keep it better.
you can
Yeah.
duplicate.
Yeah.
You take this, you can take this section right here and duplicate it.
Yeah,
right here.
That's what I meant. I could pull that down because there's nothing up above there for it, so.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
but that's what it is. I mean, it was a good question, John, because
And a shout out,
sometimes until you try to go through this and you're talking to people and you're looking at the screen saying, yeah, they don't know what that says. I know what it says up there, but so that's live and learn.
I think it's a good presentation.
Sorry, say that again?
I think it's a good presentation.
Absolutely. A lot of
Okay,
hard
so
work there.
I'm gonna try, this is the fourth time, I'm gonna try to give a shout out to the Stoughton High School Arts National Honor Society for designing our logo. Yes. I think it works well.
Yeah, and the same idea, when, whatever we do for town meeting with a presentation, that logo will get featured in there so that we're putting it up on the screen in front of all the people.
It's on the sign at the dog park now.
Yeah, no, it's,
So,
okay, so then moving on. Well, Barry, do we want to go through the closeouts?
yeah, Dwight has a hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dwight, question? Dwight, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm wondering if that logo then it belongs, right now, I say on the historical site signs, paid for by the CPC, if I should then put that logo down with that note. I mean, that's just, I'm
I
letting you
think
know.
it'd be great to put it on there. I think it's gotta be, I mean, let's send the message out. Let's hit people over the head.
Let's brand it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Barry has the files on it.
Yeah.
That you could probably use the digital version that,
Yeah. I can make a note to send those to you.
Yeah, that'd be helpful, thank you.
so then as we talked about, while Barry's making that note.
Yep.
The new closeouts for tonight, in addition to I think we said there was 3 we had approved last month. There's 5 more here. The 9th one that I talked about is really the train station, the $310,000.
Which will end up being zero.
No.
No? Oh, no, you're right.
Again, when you get into those numbers and this is. The
No,
train
okay.
station, the ban that we approved last year to pay off was for $320,000, because that's the amount that was left over to borrow. But of that amount, we only spent $310,000. So when they did all their magical accounting stuff, they ended up with this $310,000 credit in one account, debit in another account on 2 different funds in Munis. And they say they need town meeting approval, they need the legislative body view of. And so the 310 moves over. When we go to close that project, there's $9,000 of unleft, the 320 minus the 310 is $9,000 of unspent money.
Right. We're just not gonna do it all at once. And try to get the transfer.
We're just trying to get something done, yeah.
Okay, well, let me,
So let's go through the 10444, which was a supplemental on the depot. This was the original 75, or this was a $75,000
this is the first supplemental.
on and they spent all the money.
Yeah,
There's the breakdown. I mean, there was only 2 invoices that had come in. That's what I said with the Glen Echo. This type of transaction listing that I've introduced over the last few months should be part of this. So someone goes to say, hey, what happened on that project? We closed it out. Here's a list of every invoice we paid on. In this case, there's only 2 of them. You can see, this is it's not, the information's coming out of Munis, but this is not a Munis report. This is an Excel extract that I kind of just put in and formatted to look like this. And you can see 2 invoices and the approval amount when they transferred the money from CPA operations, which is what they do when they first set up the project. So we'll see that over and over on these closeouts.
anybody has any questions, just shout it out. What you do.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the fire engine.
Fire engine,
This also was spent down to zero.
yeah,
A little
$185,000.
bit longer, list of invoices. See if I can get it all on one screen.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Okay.
And to be honest, as you look at this, I built a database with all of the Munis transactions for 2021 through 2024. The ones at the bottom that are kind of missing some columns of information are coming out of a different Munis report. They don't have the same format. So I just kind of recreated the necessary information that we could see what was happening here. But again, it's an Excel spreadsheet, but it ties back. There are Munis reports that will show us those exact totals. So, but it makes that connection for us, which I think is important as we close out projects. Right?
If I can go back to before, about 20 minutes ago, you talked about that there was an expense and there was a shortfall, and Joe McCrisky said the Historical Society will cover it.
Yeah.
What was that amount that we're gonna cover? Because frankly, that is news to me, but I
Just to me too, but
Well, he said that there was a dedicated fund from a particular donor. It's not from the historical.
so it may
Society.
not be Historical Society.
Yeah.
yes, well, there is a dedicated fund and the ownership thereof is been kicked around some, but what was the amount?
Okay, you can see the second line down at the bottom below, the third line up from the bottom there that says restoration of antique,
Yeah,
fire for 140781.
yeah,
And when we saw the purchase order for that was $2,100. So I'm guessing the $700, basically the difference, $693.
$700.
$700, okay.
About 700 is what we believe is intended to be paid out of that other source, because this went down to zero. At first, we thought there was gonna be a few $100 left in this account. And Joe said, well, with the go back and forth to get something fixed on the engine, and he had to pay
There's a water
transportation
pump
both
gasket
ways.
And the
Yeah.
clutch table.
And he ended up having to pay the $950. You can see there's two different $950. He didn't think he was gonna have to pay both of them, so we thought there was gonna be a little bit of money left over. But instead, he did get billed for both of them and ran out of money, so.
Okay,
But again, our files will have a history showing all the activity if someone ever wants them.
He had thought that the repairs were going to be covered as warranty. And the restorer wanted to be paid.
Yeah.
He really had us over at that.
So that took 4 years, 2021 to 2025?
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, because it was approved in 2021.
A long time to tear it apart and rebuild it.
He was waiting at the restorer's office in a line of other.
Oh, is that
vehicles
right?
that would
and
get.
then I think Joe said he could only find like one guy in New England
Yeah.
that did this stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these projects take a little bit longer than. But yeah, I can see it. I mean, you've seen the fireman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, were you here were you on the committee when he brought it here one night?
I was, in the
Oh,
other
you
office.
across the street, yeah.
Yes, you could see it way to it, but.
Yeah, no, it was, it's a cute thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. I'm gonna move to the next, okay, this is, Glen, this is, the supplemental fund. We closed out the original, I believe.
yeah,
And this is the supplemental, which just has $5,000 in it.
this, to refresh everyone, this is also the one we got the 76,000 PARC grant. And I think is there a note on there about the 76, or did we show it down below? Yeah.
It's on the next page.
Because a year ago, we were going back and forth, because I was saying, hey, we got $81,000 left in this project. But that's because they took the $76,000 and applied it outside of the CPA fund, and it looked like we had more money left over than, and it took a while, but once we finally figured that out, Dwight, I figured that out the day I caught up with you for a walk out at Bird Street, and Eric and I were talking along the way,
right?
and I picked his brain a little bit, and then he went home and thought about it and said, hey, yeah, and he called Barry and said, yeah, that amount, that's the park grant we got. So anyway, again, here's the list of everything that went into the project. They got it done. We underspent by $5,000, and, you know, we're going to the next project to put the pavilion. So that's good progress.
All right. Everybody good with this? Okay. And this is the design phase of the Dennison project. That will, I would imagine, be coming forward at some point, probably in the coming year, maybe the year after, for the construction.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can, you know, talk with Matt about. We kind of alluded to that a little bit last month when we looked at the capital plan, because we threw some money, I mean, I don't know what the right number is gonna be, but we threw money out there that these are things we should start getting ready. When it fits into a schedule that Matt can get it done and the town can get it done. make sense, but we put it out there anyway.
Right, but I did check with Matt and there haven't been any recent invoices for this account. And I asked him if we're good to close it and he said, yes, and he did sign it. And there are the invoices. So the most recent one is January of next year.
Okay, and
Okay, and this is Mark's Field that,
Mike
Mark
Tupin
Tupin
talked,
and they were here tonight,
same idea, we gave them 12,600
just
They
for
spent-
design.
just for the design phase, and they spent the 10.5 and got a nice design, and I was really pleased to hear them moving forward with what they got going. Okay, that won't come out sideways, but same information, you can stand on your head or flip the screen, whatever.
So they spent all but $2,046. And I think that is all of them.
Yeah, I think that was. So, given that, we would entertain a vote to close the 5 projects that we just reviewed.
I make a motion that we vote to close out these 5 accounts.
Okay, somebody second it? Any additional discussion? Hearing none? Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Larice?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
Don?
Yes,
Was that Don or John?
yes,
Okay, Don?
yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay. And then we have the rescission.
Did we have another, we don't have another slide on that. We already looked at the rescission is the 73,500. Yeah, we could have voted on it at the time, but
Grabbing the wrong notes.
this, by the way, is the shared drive with all these files right in it, so that
Yeah,
everybody
every one of you has
should,
access
anybody
to
on
this.
Google should be able to go and look at any of these, I mean, which is only us. It's not available to anyone outside this committee. But here's the breakdown. We talked about the 73.5, and that's the amount to be rescinded. So we'll entertain a motion to rescind the $73,500 of borrowing.
I make the motion that we vote to rescind this $78,500.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Larice?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
John?
Yes,
Don?
yes.
The chair votes yes.
Okay, the next thing is, okay, let me just give a little background on this.
Project monitor.
Project monitor, we realized at some point, we had a project liaison policy. And we realized that was appropriate for municipal projects because it talks about assigning a municipal employee to serve as the liaison. And I included that with the grant agreements for non-municipal projects. Never occurred to me that it was not appropriate for them. It was appropriate only for municipal projects rather. So we needed a comparable policy for non-municipal projects. Like, for example, last year was Stoughton Lacrosse, Hebrew Senior Life, Father Bill's, just an A3. And so this is, I adjusted the wording so that it is appropriate, but I can read through it or whatever suits the committee's purpose. I'd like to get an endorsement of the policy.
Well, can we just see it on the screen?
Oh, sorry. I thought I had it on the screen.
And again, it, you know,
Hold on.
technically could have applied to Old Stoughton music. Could have applied to the
Yeah,
design.
it
The
would've.
smaller projects, you may not need it. People, I mean, just something to give an extra hand, somebody overseeing to make sure the project is moving along. And I think it kind of came up in part, as Barry and I discussed, like with Father Bill's and with Hebrew Senior Life, there's this whole process that they have with the state that requires them to hire a third party to do this kind of stuff. And allows them to pay for it with the money that's coming from the state. And so we're kind of mirroring that too for our own stuff, just.
Right, Hebrew Senior Life, the same story, because there's bank money involved, and it's from different banks, they have to hire a consultant who will serve as the project liaison, and that person will be the person who will either report directly to us or report to, for example, Deb Morse, and she will report to us, but that's the person who's working on behalf of the banks to monitor the construction project progress of the project.
And we looked at that and said, well, we don't need to hire another consultant to do the same thing that consultant is doing. We're such, in both cases, we're a small piece of their total project. So we're willing to rely on their banking consultant or whatever you want to call them, so. But this gives us the opportunity to do it on our own projects.
So, let me just, yeah, as you see in this paragraph, it can serve as project liaison or lender advisor. Lender advisor is
That
what
was the term, yeah.
is the term that they use for either Senior Life and for, the bills dealing with the banks. Let me read. This policy is intended to assist the CPC in determining whether an independent consultant to monitor construction progress and expenditures is necessary on non-municipal CPA projects. Its purpose is to assist the CPC and the applicant in providing a clear and concise path to project completion. In order to ensure that non-municipal CPA projects are expeditiously managed, the CPC hereby establishes this policy for having the project proponent hire an independent consultant to serve as project liaison, lender advisor, or in a similar capacity, whose role vis-a-vis the CPC is to report periodically on the project status with regard to construction project progress and CPA eligible expenditures as required or requested by the committee. Massachusetts general law prescribes that publicly funded construction projects over $1.5 million hire an independent third party as owner's project manager in order to ensure that such projects are carried out expeditiously and in the best interest of the public.
John Linehan, question? You're
Yeah,
muted.
yes, in that second paragraph, if you go up again, Barry. Keep going. Oh, yeah, there it is. The first sentence. We don't want to just ensure that they're expeditiously managed. I think there's, you can leave that in there, but I would, something and expeditiously.
Effectively?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, good,
Okay.
good input.
And it goes with whatever you had later on there, something and expeditiously.
In both places
Yeah.
to say. To say
Well,
effective-
in the one below, you have carried out expeditiously and in the best interest of the public. So it sort of alludes to something other than speed.
Well, that describes the purpose of Mass General Law.
Oh,
And then you're talking about in the very next paragraph?
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you could use both because it's just it's not what that's not a quote from the law. That's just my characterization of it. So technically you could say expeditiously and effectively in both places.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Okay. So I'll pick up where I left off. Most CPA funded projects. Most CPA funded projects are smaller than that or do not involve construction if they are on that scale. I've been ignoring the footnotes. The footnote from the end of this sentence says, to date, there have not been any CPA funded projects over $1.5 million. However, there were two that were approved at exactly that amount. One, however, was not for construction, so it wouldn't have applied. And the other, which I believe was
Well, we had two. We had the housing
presidential
court,
courts and Swan Tavern.
Swan's Tavern and the Jewish Rehabilitation School there when they were gonna
Yes.
build some senior housing.
Right, which never came to pass.
Yeah.
So neither of those would have ended up.
Helps to be around a long time.
I know.
May not remember the deed. It's like, oh yeah, I remember the project,
Okay,
as most of us.
okay. So in bolding, it says it is therefore established that for non-municipal projects of greater than 500,000 worth of CPA-funded construction costs. And the footnote says, for the purposes of this policy, construction costs do not include the cost of a project manager, project liaison, a lender advisor, or person operating in that capacity. So in other words, we can pay for that person out of CPA funds, but if you're calculating the construction cost, do not include that in the construction cost. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so after the footnote, the applicant shall hire a third-party consultant to fulfill this role and be responsible for the costs involved unless specifically exempted from this requirement by the CPC. Okay, cost of said consultant may be included in the request for the CPA funds as a CPA eligible project expense, provided it is calculated to be no greater than the proportionate construction expenses for the CPA eligible portion of the project. So in other words, let's say if the project is 50% construction and 50%, you know, I don't know, something else. Let's just, whatever it is.
Some fee they had to pay.
I'm sorry.
Open space.
Open space, right.
Land, yeah.
So if the third-party consultant is going to be monitoring the entire expense, only half of their fee would be eligible for reimbursement under the CPA, because only half of the project is construction, or whatever percentage. That would be the percentage that would be eligible of that consultant's fee for our reimbursement. Is that?
Makes sense.
I'm seeing some glazed faces. I'm not sure that's getting through. Okay, all right. If anybody has any questions.
You can only use CPA funds to pay for things that are being monitored relative to the CPA.
Well, it might not be, it might also be CPA, but it might not be construction.
So why limit it? But there's a question,
Um,
John's got a question, and Dwight.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if we should put in that bolded section, unless specifically exempted in writing from this requirement by the CPC.
It does say that.
It doesn't say
Oh,
in writing. Yeah,
Okay,
just so we don't get into a he said, she said.
okay. Good point. Okay,
Dwight? You're muted.
Sorry, so the proportionate, just trying to sort out the proportionate piece, so that if 50% is being paid, let's say by CPC, and 50% is CPA, and 50% is not, the cost of said consultant may be included in the request, provided it's calculated to be no greater than the proportionate construction expenses, so that the cost, let's assume the, I don't know, the consultant costs $100,000, I don't know, $50,000. That 50,000, just unraveling the exact fractions here, my mind is having trouble with that if the consultant has a cost, and if his job is to report to the CPC, his salary cannot be higher than what?
just to clarify, his entire job is not reporting to the CPC. His main job is reporting back to the lenders. But he's
Oh.
reporting back to them the same information we're looking for too.
Okay,
So what I'm saying is, he can report back to the bank all he wants. If half of the project is CPA funded, we're only going to reimburse half of whatever his fee is. If they ask.
okay.
So for example, let's say,
Maybe we work through the example, because it kind of carries over to the next page.
sure, let me go through.
That may help. So, can you show them both? So for example, if CPA related construction expenses are 60% of the total, and then the next page.
Yeah.
Then no more than 60% of the consultant's cost may be deemed eligible for CPA fund.
So if it
I don't know
was
if that helped.
$1 million and it was 600,000, they'd only get 60% of the 600,000.
At most, and they still have to ask for it. They have to apply for it as part of their application.
And that would be included in their application as far as. okay.
Right.
Yeah, and it would be in the MOU or the project grant agreement would be all spelled out, so.
No surprises.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons we wanted to have this in place now for the next project that comes forward. So they'll have access to this policy, so they'll know
Right.
if they can apply for this money up front.
Okay, so I guess the part that it's the assumption is that this consultant will also be reporting back to other lenders and is already going to be there. I guess that's the piece that I didn't realize. So that,
Yes.
okay,
Yes. I mean, in cases where they have money that they're borrowing from banks, I would think that most projects where we're going to impose this requirement are large enough projects that they are dealing with banks. I mean, there are going to be some exceptions we may want to make. For example, the lacrosse fields, there's over $500,000 in construction costs in that. So if we want to, well, I mean, if we had the policy in place, we could have said we exempt Stoughton Lacrosse from this requirement because we don't want to burden them with paying for a consultant. They're perfectly capable of coming to us like they did tonight and reporting on the progress without paying somebody to do that for them.
Good point.
We don't really want to see an applicant get in over their head and the project flounder.
Right. It's a safeguard.
It's just a safeguard.
It's a safeguard.
And in having a policy up front means we have the discussion up front. So we don't get 6-9 months into a project and we say, yeah, we aren't making any progress and you should have done this, you should have done, it's just.
In fact, this policy is in essence written into the grant agreement that we have with Team Senior Life. They were the ones who brought it up. They
Yeah.
said, we're gonna have a lender advisor. That would take the place of what at that time was called the project liaison. So we rewrote it to include the lender advisor in that role, as opposed to the project liaison, which is originally the language in the grant agreement.
And I guess the other thing is, it's a policy, it's not cast in stone. When we go to implement it, we may learn that we gotta tweak some of the languages and then we tweak the policy. It's just another step in the direction of helping us better manage projects is all this is intended.
Okay, so I would say it's to complete it. Under this policy, there would be a person who would serve as a control point to monitor the progress of the project and be responsible for providing periodic updates to the CPC as required or requested. And that's basically a restatement, a summary of what we've said about. So that's it. And we can change it. If it doesn't work for us, we'll change it.
yeah, I think to move it along, I think based on what I see, I would move to accept this policy.
As amended.
As we amended it in discussion, yeah. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, well, any further discussion? Hearing none. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Clarice?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay. And let me go back to the final piece of administrative business. And this is the calendar. We went through this in the last meeting.
I think
We've
we
made-
tweaked a couple
we've
of
tweaked
dates
it.
or something, Barry, on it, but just again, as a guideline so that we can look ahead and anticipate stuff as it comes up. And we had the conversation about pulling the public hearing up much earlier in the year to try to get more input before we get into these deadlines where everything has to be done at once and all that stuff, so.
And according to this, we're right on track because February's meeting says approved 2025 proposed calendar.
Funny how that works, huh? So any questions, any discussion on the calendar?
And I just want to point out, we've moved up the deadline dates so that we're giving ourselves some more time than we had this year.
Yeah, I think you could all tell in November and December, I was not real happy having our first view of an application that needs to be approved before the end of the year. It's not fair to us, not always fair to the applicant, but this whole thing is gonna cause us to send out a notice in sometime in March, actually, so right after the March meeting, asking for these types of proposals, and that'll have the dates on it. So when people come into us in September and October, it's gonna be like, okay, but you're on next year's schedule, folks. Right? Was that Dwight question?
Yes, I applaud the impulse. I just saying however many years I've been on CPC, from the second year on, we made attempts to speed up the process and do what you're trying to do. So God
Yeah.
bless you and good luck to all of us.
It's another attempt and, the one thing I would say, based on, you've got a year or two more than me on this, but I don't think we had a specific schedule that we could point to and say, this is that. I mean, we kind of, I don't know, it's just another attempt, so we'll let it be.
One of the big changes is that we're moving the public hearing from October, November to June, which makes more sense, because if we have it in November, the deadlines have already passed to submit applications.
Yes.
Yes, the phenomenon is that so many of the applications, even especially ones from the town, come in at a later date than this,
Yes.
year after year. And that's just the way it is. But
It is, and we're gonna try to break it, but you're right. I mean, my goal is not to have us turning down or delaying projects. My goal personally is to try to get that message out there and get people more in sync. And as I've said, I copied a lot of this from what goes on down in Falmouth. Falmouth has the advantage of having basically two town meetings a year, because they meet in the spring and the fall. But their schedule is even further out than this, and they stick to it. So there are other CPCs out there that get it going, but
Yeah.
it's worth a try. It's worth a try.
Maybe I'm just an optimist, but I will point out that the one town project that we had submitted to us this year was submitted in advance of the deadline, so. You know.
Yeah.
Things.
the pocket
change.
park.
Yes.
And again, the capital plan that we talked about last week, that we submitted, or last month, same idea. It's to try to bring a focus on specific things further out, and then we can help move them forward. We'll try it, that's all.
So if this is good, do we need a vote?
We take a vote to approve the calendar as it stands. And again, this can change as time goes on, but,
Yeah, it's not set in stone, just in.
so do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. Rich?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Clarice?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Other
So
anticipated,
I guess I just, with the way, alternate way we've done it was said, okay, then if they pass the deadline, then it is supposed to be defined as an emergency or what's the wording we've accepted?
Urgent review, we'll still have that.
Urgent review.
yeah, there are some dates on there for the urgent review too that are moved up, but part of why I'm pushing something like this is last year we had things that are urgent review, and a year has gone by, and I'm not seeing any real progress on the project. We haven't really started, so we jumped through hoops to approve an urgent review, to get it approved, to go to town meeting. A whole year goes by, and we haven't spent a dime, we haven't issued a PO. Not fair to us to go through that. But, I mean, clearly in that case, maybe they could have waited till the next year.
But of the we had, 11 projects last year at town meeting, and I think they're all underway. If not,
I think the projects, the last 2 years' projects, I think we have had a little bit more of a push.
Yeah.
And this is not just me, this is, Mark was doing it when he was here. We really got moving, and I just want to build on that momentum, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't ever think we would be in a position, we're gonna say no just because we had a calendar that said you were supposed to do this last week. We will, I think, continue to do what we can to get it done.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean last year, I meant 2 years ago. at town
Yeah.
meeting. We had 11 projects.
But even the ones from last year, I think
Even
most of
from
them we're
last
now
year.
seeing are underway.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't hear it, but the two projects from Jerry McDonald, the Atkinson Ave and Bird Street. one of them, I think he put a date on there that he expects to get it done by 2027.
Right.
There's not that much work going on that at least I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't understand why that's a 3-year project. To put in a little parking area up at Bird Street. So we'll have that conversation. And part of me, I think I understand. Jerry's one person and doing a lot, and he does a great job. I'm not picking on Jerry. What can we do to help? Do we need to hire a third-party person? I mean, Forrest Lindwall, when I was on the SRA, always wanted to get his fingers into, hey, as a kind of semi-retired civil engineer, knows a little bit about, he would have loved to have been able to say, hey, why don't you bring him in and help him run these projects for you? A few extra bucks that we can pay legitimately out of our funds to get a project done a year or two quicker is often gonna be well worth it. So, I'll shut up. Anyway, any other unanticipated new business or emergency matters?
No, I just had one other question, real quick. On the Stoughton Motel for the 250, are we the last in? So in other words, they spend all their funds and then,
Yeah, we're last in on
Yes.
that.
Just wanted to
Last
double check.
dollar in, yes.
Okay.
Hebrew Senior Life, we had a schedule of when they're gonna go in, but we kind of split it into 2 payments. I think we settled. on.
2/3 at the construction closing and the last third at the end of the project.
At the end.
The last
The occupancy. Okay, hearing none. Next meeting we have scheduled for Wednesday, March 5th. And then don't everyone jump at once, but there's one more motion to be made.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded,
Second.
second,
Aye.
no discussion. Rich, aye, Bob, Maurice, Dwight,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Dawn, and the chair votes yes.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Good night.